All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Team Kentucky Update. This morning, we announced a historic milestone. We announced that the Commonwealth of Kentucky just posted the lowest unemployment rate in our state's history. That is fantastic news and further proof that while we face some challenges in our present, our future is as bright and optimistic as it has ever been. Record breaking economic development is going to offer more opportunity to our kids and our kids' kids than many of us had ever thought was possible. The U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics first began reporting state unemployment rates 45 years ago in 1976. This morning, the Kentucky Center for Statistics reported our seasonally adjusted preliminary April 2022 employment rate was 3.9%, the lowest ever. Delving into the numbers and other good news, the number of people employed in April increased by 5,080 Kentuckians, and the number of unemployed decreased by 2,455. What that means is we had people not only who were classified as unemployed, that were looking for work, that found work and became gainfully employed. We also had people that were out of the labor market that got back in and took a job. Both very good signs that employment is continuing month after month to grow. Kentucky's seasonally adjusted non-farm employment rose by 2,700 jobs in April 2022 compared to the month prior. Our non-farm employment was up 59,000 jobs from last year. Some other highlights include manufacturers expanded payrolls by 6,000 jobs in April. Employment in financial activity sector rose 700 positions. Employment in finance and insurance up 600 jobs. Real estate, rental, and leasing subsector up 100 jobs. So the financial activity sector was up 1,400 jobs compared to last year. Educational and health services sector added 300 jobs. All the jobs gained occurred in the healthcare and social assistance subsector, which was up 300 positions from March to April. Since last April, the sector has increased 3,800 jobs. In fact, one of the only areas that we lost jobs was in state employment. And certainly the recent budget that was passed that will make us more competitive in wages will only increase the overall employment as those go into effect primarily in July. We have secured our spot as a leader in Kentucky by establishing Kentucky as the capital for electric vehicle battery production as well as agriculture technology. But even more important, we're building a Kentucky where people can create a better life through good jobs, affordable, accessible health care, world-class educational opportunities, and solid infrastructure. We're not just talking about building a better Kentucky, we're doing it. And while we push through the challenges of our present, we are building a brighter future for the next generations. And that is a legacy that everybody out there who is working towards that better tomorrow can be excited about. So that brings us to economic development. A number of announcements from this last week that we're going to recap. The first is one I was so excited about, I mentioned this morning, and that is Catalan Pharma Solutions. Catalan Pharma Solutions is a global leader in enabling pharma, biotech, and consumer health partners to optimize product development with over 50 manufacturing locations across the globe. I'm excited to re-announce that the company's expansion in Clark County is a $175 million expansion that will add to its existing operation and add a new R&D facility. Better still, the project's going to create an impressive 277 high-wage jobs in that community. With this investment, the existing 190,000 square foot Winchester facility will grow by 90,000 square feet, greatly boosting manufacturing capability within Catalan's oral dose division. The company is also requiring, and I learned a little more about it, an additional 17,000 square foot facility that's going to house research and development, meaning Catalan believes that Kentucky is a place where innovation can and will happen. One of the most exciting aspects of this project that I didn't announce this morning is that it comes with an average hourly wage of $37.62, meaning it's going to put food on our families' tables and be a stable employment opportunity that benefits so many. Very excited that this is in one of my home counties, Clark County, and is going to help Winchester and the surrounding industries. We got to point out this company already employs over 650 Kentuckians at that location, and so this is a further commitment and belief in Kentucky. I want to thank Catalan for their continued investment in Kentucky and our communities, and I'm looking forward to this expansion and everything that is to come. Now I'd like to welcome Chris Rosenbaum, General Manager of the Catalan facility in Winchester, to say a few words. Chris?
Thank you, Governor. On behalf of Catalan Winchester and Catalan Pharma Solutions, I'd like to thank Governor Beshear, KEDFA, and the Cabinet of Economic Development for their continued support of Catalan's growth in Kentucky. The addition of our manufacturing capacity and capability in Winchester, along with the research and development facility, is only going to further our mission to help people around the world live better, healthier lives.
Thank you. Thank you to Chris. Thank you to Catalan. What an amazing corporate citizen here in Kentucky. Next, I want to highlight the A2A Pharmaceutical Network and its expansion in the Commonwealth. A2A Pharmaceutical Network is a pharmaceutical manufacturing and technology organization that will be growing its operations with a new headquarter facility in Scottsville. The project will include a $1.7 million investment and create 27 full-time jobs in that community. The state-of-the-art facility will locate in the Allen Springs Industrial Park in Scottsville and will include increased operations to the company's warehousing and distribution capabilities. This will be A2A's second manufacturing location in Kentucky and will serve as the company's new headquarters because they're relocating their headquarters from Nashville, Tennessee. So to everybody who has said a company has moved from Kentucky to its headquarters in Nashville, guess what? We are turning that around. We continue to see our logistics and distribution industry thrive here in the Commonwealth, and that is a direct result not just of our unique location and our resources, but quality companies like A2A believing we have something to offer that helps them succeed. I want to thank this company for continuing to believe in us. Every new headquarters, every new R&D facility are pretty special. They mean we're not just the workers, but we are the thinkers and the leaders of the future. Now I want to turn my attention to Kentucky's signature bourbon and distillery industry to highlight a special event from this last week. The Jim Beam American Stillhouse in Claremont hosted a ribbon cutting and barrel signing event to celebrate its reopening last week. And it was a great reminder of the exciting times and economic momentum we are seeing throughout the state. The event celebrated the company's massive expansion efforts, $45 million of investment that saw a complete overhaul of the facility. The new center offers expanded tours. I got to take part of one, an education center, an amphitheater, meeting spaces, and a more comprehensive guest experience. Jim Beam has an incredibly rich history in the Commonwealth with 8 generations of distillers. We have 2 right there in the pictures that date back over 200 years. In fact, Fred No got to announce that his son, Freddie, was taking over as the master distiller for one of their locations. Freddie didn't know. Pretty special between a father and a son. I got to tell Freddie I know a little bit of what that feels like. This type of investment further solidifies the company's position as a premier distillery that will continue to attract countless tourists to Kentucky. Kentucky is the bourbon capital of the world, and it's this type of dedication and investment that is going to keep us as that bourbon capital of the world. So I want to thank the leaders at Jim Beam American Stillhouse for their hospitality. From somebody who's been there, it is quite the experience. I encourage everyone who is interested to go, and it's going to draw so many people in from across the United States and across the world. And once they see what Team Kentucky has to offer, we know they're going to want to stay. Speaking of continued success in Kentucky, just yesterday, I was honored to join Kroger officials in Oldham County, where we broke ground on its newest store project. It's a 100,000 square foot store, $30 million investment that is going to create 300 great jobs for the folks in Buckner, and the surrounding Oldham County region. It's going to include things that we all look for, like a Starbucks and a little clinic. And even better, it's going to attract more business around the facility, but certainly provide fresh, healthy food to this community. You got to think about what Kroger has meant to us this past decade. It's everything from starting the Shop and Share program with my mom, Jane Beshear, to make sure that our domestic violence shelters have everything they need, because people in crisis come to them with absolutely nothing, to being our partner in COVID testing, in fact, creating the gold standard that the United States government modeled and then copied in other states. That was us here in Kentucky and Kroger. To the vaccination clinics they helped us with time and time again. Kroger has stepped up to the Everybody Counts pilot program in Jefferson County, trying to get every single graduating senior either in higher education or signed up for a job. When we look at that unemployment rate being the lowest ever, that means we got to make sure that everybody entering the workforce, like these graduating seniors, finds a job and finds it quickly. That continues to fuel growth like those of the companies that we are talking about today. My thanks to everybody in Kroger. Congratulations to Oldham County and to Buckner. Next, I want to highlight some extremely exciting news from Site Selection Magazine, which released its annual rankings on what they call the Prosperity Cup. Kentucky was well represented. Kentucky ranks 6th in this year's Prosperity Cup after placing in a tie for 5th in 2021. So for anybody out there who says we don't have a good business climate and is trying to change different laws or other things, the top magazine, the top industry periodical disagrees. They say we have the 6th best climate for business prosperity in all the United States. These rankings recognize state-level economic development success based on capital investment project activity during the previous calendar year. In addition to being 6th overall, we had 2 of the top 11 projects of last year. That's, of course, Ford Motor Company and SK Innovations Blue Oval SK Battery Park in Hardin County and Amazon Air Hub in Boone County. They ranked 3rd and 11th, respectively. I'm sure we already have, at least 1, if not 2 to 3, that will be in the top 11 next year. Lastly, the Commonwealth brought home multiple Mac Conway Awards, which are reserved for economic development organizations on the regional or local level. So it's a lot of work these groups put in. Congratulations to the Bowling Green Area Chamber of Commerce, the Elizabethtown Hardin County Industrial Foundation, Louisville Forward, Greater Louisville Incorporated, and Ready, Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Triad for earning this honor. We love working with these groups. They put in a ton of work on their local and regional level. This shows incredible success. We are very proud here in Kentucky. All right, given a recent increase that I think we are seeing in numbers and we are seeing amongst people that we know contracting COVID, we're going to turn there next. Let's start with the map. We're going to have a couple pieces of data here, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stack that show we are having escalated cases and spread. I think we all see that of COVID. Our map has picked up significantly. We just had 4 counties the 2 previous weeks, significantly more here. We expect probably more than this, if not at least this amount when the new map comes out tonight. Let's look at our stair-stepper chart. Again, when that map is no longer just cases, as cases have become less directly tied to hospitalizations and serious disease, this stair-stepper chart has a little bit of less meaning on the overall where we are, but it's important to see what some of the trends are. Certainly this last week, a real uptick in cases. It's fair to say now that we are no longer at leveled off, no longer at a plateau. We are seeing an escalation like is being seen across the country. Positivity rate certainly shows that. Again, I know this is a little different now that we've got take-home tests and the like, but certainly it gives enough to see an overall trend of people getting COVID at a higher rate. Now, while all of those are increasing and starting to see a real pattern of increasing, I think the better news is some of the rates, some of the other indications. Let's first look at hospitalizations. Now, I do want to point out that this is probably increasing a little. You know, we've generally had a plateau down there. You know, we may well see an uptick, but we expect it to be much smaller and much slower than before. I'm going to let Dr. Stack in a second give his expert opinion on this, as he's seeing the numbers not weekly, but really daily. But let me give you what I view as good news, because a decoupling of cases and severe illness is really good news, is the next two charts. This is the ICU census, still low, still incredibly low, the lowest that we have had in the pandemic. And that means, in my opinion, that yes, we should be mindful of what's going on. We should be cognizant. We should make good decisions to protect ourselves. We should not be scared because these numbers, again, are staying low, which suggests that whatever we are dealing with now does not cause severe illness nearly at the level of what we have dealt with before. And finally, the ventilator numbers, I think, bear that out as well. Throughout this journey, this was a really scary chart, and we are really blessed about where it is. Now, as usual, to correct everything I just said that may or may not have been wrong, we have Dr. Stack.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon, everyone. And actually, ironically, when you tease about that, you've got it all right, and so I get to come up here and just validate that, and you hear it from another person. So it's actually wonderful. It's been a good journey to have a partner that we can collaborate so well. So, if you could put up the current green map, yes, I'm going to use this as a backdrop while I talk. So, it's true that both the number of cases have increased recently and the positivity rate has increased recently. Both of those have to be interpreted differently now, though, because a lot of people are doing at-home tests, and so we're not getting all of those positives, and that's okay because we're adjusting to life with COVID, not life permanently disrupted by COVID. Even so, the cases have increased. There is more disease out there. The positivity rate is useful for, I think, public health professionals to use. It's still a really good sample size. We had about 46,000 PCR, polymerase chain reaction test results that made that. That's 1% of all Kentuckians over a 7-day period getting a PCR test. That's a lot. And so the positivity rate increasing still tells us that there is more disease and that we're finding more of it. But again, there are a lot of people doing antigen tests at places that we're not getting those results. And again, I just want you to hear it. That's okay. We are at a stage where people need to use information and use tools to be responsible for themselves and for their communities, and to take steps to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. So on this map, and this is the current one, the CDC will update this tonight, and tomorrow morning our website will update to reflect what they do on the CDC site. This shows, I think it was about 10 counties up here, maybe 12, who are yellow. I want to encourage any Kentuckian who is still looking at this, and first of all, I want you to look at this and use this as a tool, but any Kentuckian who is following our recommendation to use this as a tool, go to kycovid19.ky.gov. This is updated every Friday morning, and follow the key coded instructions that go with this. If you're in a green county, look to the table beneath. There's a green column. It tells you what we recommend you do. If there's a yellow or a red county, look to the column that corresponds to the color your county is and follow that. This metric, and I will address this specifically because a reporter put a question in, this metric is a composite metric. It shows both the incidence rate, which is the number of new cases over a 7-day period. It shows the number of people admitted to the hospitals over the previous 7-day period. And it also shows the total number of people who are in the hospital during a 7-day period. So those three metrics the CDC uses and combines through a formula to produce this, because what we've seen is exactly what the governor said. The cases are not translating in the same proportion to serious or severe illness or death. Now, please don't misunderstand me. COVID is still a serious disease. It's really important that you go out and get vaccinated and stay boosted with your vaccine. It's really important, if you haven't chosen to get vaccinated yet, that you reconsider that and hopefully go get vaccinated. It is the safest way to lower your risk and keep yourself and others around you safe. But this composite map now reflects the reality that getting COVID doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up in an ICU or on a ventilator or dead, even if you have some medical risks. But the reason it's this way is because we've been successful in getting large numbers of people vaccinated. And yes, the disease has spread for now 2 years plus throughout the country. And so a lot of people have had natural infection. And the combination of the two has helped to de-link the severity of disease from just getting the disease. If you could show James the one other map. So a reporter has asked about this. This is the incidence rate map that we used to show on a regular basis before we had the new CDC composite map. We still publish this and we still update this once weekly with the other data on the KY COVID-19 website on the KDPH data tab. We want to share this information just as transparency and so you know what we're seeing in Kentucky. I don't encourage you to use this map to make your decisions when you go out in public because the composite map is the one that really shows you what your risk is if you're likely to get exposed, and if you get exposed and do get sick, are you likely to have access to healthcare? So the front page on the KY COVID website shows the other map. That's the one I'd encourage you all to look at. But for those people who do research, for the media, for others who are tracking the disease and reporting to you, we provide this out there so you know in relative terms how many cases we're finding in the different counties throughout the state. But they're used for different purposes, and this is not the decision-making map anymore. It's the other one that I showed before. So you can take both those down, James. The last things I just want to share are that we continue to curate the KY COVID-19 website. I encourage anyone who's interested or who finds yourself exposed or who finds yourself testing positive or having symptoms to please use that website. There's a tab up there that says Find Tests and Treatment. If you go to the Find Tests and Treatment tab, you can find how can you order tests from the federal government. And just this week, they increased it to 8 tests per household. Go to that website, click the link. You can order 8 tests. The federal government will deliver them to you by the Postal Service. I got my 4 originally and still have them. It worked very well. So I encourage you, if you want to get some antigen tests, go ahead and do that and have them on hand so that when you need them, they're right in your own home. You don't have to go out and find them. Second of all, we have resources there for finding testing at pharmacies that the federal government still supports. And if you go to those pharmacies, they have test and treat pharmacies. So if you test positive, many of them can screen you on the spot. And if you're eligible, give you an oral antiviral to help treat your condition if you are indicated to have one. Additionally, we still run the state monoclonal site. Now, that funding for that will end June 30th. We're in regular discussion with those sites, and the map is still available on the test and treat page. But if you find yourself positive for COVID, particularly if you have high risks, if you're over 60, if you have major medical problems, please go to that site and you can find a monoclonal site near you and go get treatment to further lower your risk of ending up in the hospital or particularly sick. And then finally, the vaccination situation will continue to evolve over time. And just this week, the FDA has approved a booster for children 5 to 11 years of age. So that is a booster for children 5 to 11. The CDC is meeting today, I believe. Some pharmacies and some pediatric offices have already made available that booster, but the rest of them will follow probably over the next week or so once the CDC offers its concurring opinion on that. It is still not available for children under the age of 5 to get a COVID vaccine, but we're also hopeful that as we enter the summer that will happen. Both Moderna and Pfizer are actively working on that. And I know there are a number of parents who are eagerly waiting for that day. That should hopefully come later this summer, but I don't have any other information on that. So folks, my wrap up is that I hope what I said actually didn't correct anything the governor told you. It actually affirms it and supports it, but it's still a serious disease. We have to take it seriously. We ignore it at our own peril, and we need to be careful. But folks, you'll see me out there, and thanks to everyone who's been so courteous. I've been out at more restaurants, and I've seen people in public. You've been overwhelmingly positive. It's just nice to see your smiling face. And yes, I'll do a selfie occasionally. I couldn't do that stuff earlier, but it's nice to see you. And you'll see me without a mask when I'm in settings where I don't feel I'm exposing others to elevated risk. And that's okay. So we have to be responsible, but we also can move on in large part. So thank you for all your support and partnership over this journey. And back to you, Governor.
I can't wait to see selfies with Dr. Stack explode on social media. Let me just, in all seriousness, say I am the father of an 11-year-old, and I will be taking her to get her booster. These vaccines are safe. The boosters are helpful. And this is a kiddo I love more than anything else in the world. Would give my life for her any moment. And I know this is going to help protect her and ensure that her life can continue to be as normal as possible, and excited about the level of normalcy our kids have gotten back to. But speaking of my kids, yesterday I was honored to celebrate our progress to fight against childhood brain cancer that so many other parents' children are suffering from. We got to remember precious children we've lost far too soon to this awful disease. Kids like Candace and Colton, Kyler, Gavin, David, Abby, Julia, Liz, Mandy, and David Jr. I'm so grateful for, those are pictures. Those are pictures of those children right there. I'm grateful to their families for coming to our state capitol and continuing the legacy of their children to make sure they will never be forgotten, and that other children will not have to go through what they did. Families were also joined by healthcare heroes and advocates in their fight against childhood cancer. Now, childhood cancer is the #1 cause of death by disease in children. 1 in 285 children and teens in the United States will be diagnosed with cancer before their 20th birthday. There are about 40,000 kids in the country going through treatment right now, and they need our support and our love. But more than that, they need access to better therapies, and those kids deserve a cure. That's why we're determined to make Kentucky a national leader in the fight against childhood cancer by raising awareness and funds for research. For example, last year, we worked with other state leaders to secure another $2.5 million for the Pediatric Cancer Research Trust Fund. And this year, we did even more. State budget allocated a record $6.25 million in each fiscal year to the trust fund. These dollars focus on general pediatric cancer research and supporting the expansion of clinical trials at the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville. Talking to one of these families who had lost their child, was talking about having to travel just to have access to a clinical trial, and sometimes that's the only hope that these parents might have. Increasing the amount that we provide to the Pediatric Cancer Trust Fund not only helps us research that next great cure, but also means we have those clinical trials that these parents and their children need right here in Kentucky. That's why we keep investing in a basic human right, access to high quality, affordable health care. That's why we made good on our promise to relaunch Connect, our state-based health insurance marketplace. It's why we continue to protect expanded Medicaid. Over 660,000 Kentucky children, all children of God, are on a form of Medicaid. And protecting our kids from this disease is very personal to Brittany and I, made personal first through our friend David Turner Jr., who died from DIPG after an incredibly courageous battle. He was 9 years old. These are his parents. You may remember that we honored him last year by proclaiming May 21, 2021 as David Turner Jr. Ice Cream Day in the Commonwealth. Strawberry was his favorite flavor, at least it was the day that he declared it to be National Ice Cream Day. I remember the first time I met him, we brought him into the governor's office, pulled him up behind the chair, gave him a pen and said, "You're the governor. What are you going to do?" And Brittany suggested Kentucky Ice Cream Day, but David thinks bigger than that and declared it National Ice Cream Day. So that's why, once again, for the second year in a row, we proclaimed David Turner Jr. Ice Cream Day in the Commonwealth. So to close out that event, we recognize Brain Tumor Awareness Month, DIPG Awareness Day, and the second annual David Turner Jr. Ice Cream Day. After the event, we served ice cream in David's honor with his favorite flavors. So many kids were here, so many siblings that supported and maybe even lost their special relative. We were glad that both they got to recognize their sibling, their child, their grandchild, but also have a little bit of fun with the other kids that are there and a special treat. All right. Over the last several weeks, we've also announced funding to aid those that were harmed by the most devastating tornado event of our lifetime last December. We've announced over $17 million thus far in West Kentucky State aid funding for emergency or SAFE funds. That was a fund passed through the General Assembly. Today, I'm happy to announce another round of more than $500,000, $586,000 to be exact, in SAFE fund awards to 3 Western Kentucky counties to help with their rebuilding. This is an ongoing application process as costs come up. These funds announced today will accommodate the local share for FEMA eligible expenses and help cover the costs of some non-FEMA eligible storm debris removal. Today's awards include $500,000 to the Caldwell County Fiscal Court, $36,000 to the Lyon County Fiscal Court, and $50,000 to the Marshall County Fiscal Court. We will continue to provide funds out of the SAFE Fund and continue to use that Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund to do good things. Yesterday, we also celebrated 4 good pieces of legislation that will benefit Kentucky's military service members and their families. We are grateful for legislation that expands the Military Family Assistance Trust Fund, makes it easier for military spouses to obtain occupational licenses, and adds 7 active military unit license plates to the 28 current military-related plates. That was House Bill 636. That's going to help, especially those in the National Guard that may be asked to help multiple times in a year by removing overall caps and allowing for some assistance even when they are not on federal status. House Bill 91. We're asking these families to move so many different times, and the military spouse shouldn't have to reapply and pay a fee for an occupational license that they have earned in another state. Now they won't have to. And House Bill 465, which recognizes some amazing and significant active military units related to Kentucky that'll now have license plates that they can order to show their pride. That includes the V Corps, the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault, 5th Special Forces Group, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the United States Army Human Resource Command, the United States Army Recruiting Command, and the United States Army Cadet Command. Now, these join 28 other plates that are out there, but we are proud of these units that are primarily at Fort Campbell and Fort Knox, or have served in Kentucky in special ways. This is a chance for all of us to say thank you to those that have these license plates and to show pride in the incredible work of those units. This week, Kentucky also joins the rest of the country in honoring those who daily dedicate their lives to the safety and security of the communities that we call home. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation that designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. To our law enforcement personnel, for every moment of harm prevented, for the assurance given and guidance offered to our citizens, thank you for everything you do as part of Team Kentucky. Our officers take on many roles and rise daily to meet challenges. But as we celebrate, let us not forget those who made the ultimate sacrifice for their fellow citizens, those who gave their life in the line of duty, and the families who love and miss them. Words cannot express the pain our Commonwealth is feeling at the very recent loss, in fact, this week, of Callaway County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Jody Cash, former member of the state police, who lost his life on Monday, May 16th, in service to Kentucky. Chief Deputy Cash was connected in that community, as are his family and his kids. They go to church with some very close friends of mine. I know that everybody is hurting for that family, but is also here to support them in both prayer and in action. Just like the 558 peace officers whose names are etched on the Kentucky Law Enforcement Memorial Monument, Chief Deputy Cash served the Commonwealth with pride, with dignity, with bravery, and with honor. Chief Deputy Cash began his law enforcement career with the Caldwell County Sheriff's Office and went on to serve with the Murray State University Police. He served with the Kentucky State Police from 2011 to 2018, where he retired as a sergeant before joining the Callaway County Sheriff's Office. While serving as the KSP Post 1 Public Affairs Officer, he responded to the 2018 Marshall County High School shooting, where he served as the face of the agency during the tragedy. He performed that difficult task with dignity, respect, compassion, and love to a community that was hurting in such a tragic time and had seen such an unspeakable and horrific act. Additionally, Chief Deputy Cash attended the Department of Criminal Justice Training's Post-Critical Incident Seminar as a participant in 2017 after experiencing 3 traumatic events, 2 of which involved line-of-duty deaths. After attending his first seminar, he signed up to be a peer, to help others who had experienced similar things. He participated in nearly all seminars, given his time and facing his trauma to help other people after 2017 until the present. Chief Deputy Cash chose to use his past law enforcement experiences to minister to and assist those other officers and dispatchers dealing with some of the toughest days that they had been through. Services for Chief Deputy Cash will be held this Saturday at 1 p.m. Central Time at the CFSB Center at Murray State University. Interment will follow at the Murray City Cemetery. I will also be ordering flags at all state office buildings to be lowered to half-staff on Saturday, and I invite anybody else flying a flag anywhere in this Commonwealth to lower your flags to half-staff to honor Chief Deputy Cash. To Jody's family, fellow officers, friends, the community, your church family, the Commonwealth is grieving with you and praying with and for you. Chief Deputy Jody Cash will never be forgotten. Between the remembrance that the National Police Week brings and the recent loss of Jody, we should all be reminded that our law enforcement selflessly serve day after day without knowing the danger that awaits them. This week, let us take time to thank them. If you're out and you see a police officer, a deputy sheriff, a court security officer, school resource officer, anybody that's out there. I got a chance to thank a security officer at a hospital yesterday at an event. Take a moment to say thank you. And thank you always means more when you say why. I got a chance to say thank you for keeping everybody in this building safe. Because of them, Kentucky is better and safer for our kids and for everybody. All right, let's try to end on a positive note with our Team Kentucky All-Stars. For this week's Team Kentucky All-Stars, we're celebrating the principal of Jennings Creek Elementary School. Principal Jamie Woosley has worked tirelessly to ensure that his students are safe, happy, and healthy, especially after the devastating tornadoes hit in December. On Monday, Jamie helped my wife, Brittany, pull together a toy drive assembly at the Jennings Creek Elementary School in Bowling Green, which borders the heavily impacted Crestwood neighborhood. Brittany, I think, ran the most successful toy drive in human history after last December's tornadoes. And that's because of you and people from all over the country and all over the world opening your hearts and opening your wallets to these children that hadn't just lost their Christmas toys, but all their toys. And because of that, this day was possible. Directly after the tornado, Jamie went door to door, knocking on the houses of students to make sure that they were okay. He continues to ensure that families impacted by the tornado are settled during the rebuild. I want to thank all the Western Kentucky teachers and staff that have diligently worked to provide the well-being of our students after this. And I want to thank Principal Woosley and thank him for being a true Team Kentucky All-Star. With that, we'll turn to questions. We have one journalist with us in person, Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor. The president is not ending, apparently, the COVID public health emergency. That has a lot to impact on the expansion of Medicaid that I think we've had a number of people here in Kentucky benefit from. Are you hearing any hints of when that may end? And also, how much does this cost the state to expand the program?
Well, the president has announced a continued emergency as it relates to COVID, which will keep tens of thousands of Kentuckians on coverage that they signed up for during the pandemic. All of us are rightfully concerned, wanting people to continue to have some form of healthcare coverage on what that transition looks like. And certainly we learned an important lesson that we've got to make signing up for healthcare coverage simpler. And you were able to do that during the pandemic. We were planning and working on what the transition looked like. We were working both with our Medicaid managed care organizations that offer different plans, working with the exchange, looking at whether a basic health plan was the right direction to go or not. This is going to extend the time that we have to prepare for that day that we transition. But it provides significant federal funds. To my knowledge, it doesn't cost the state anything more. Steve? Right. So these are additional federal funds that help us provide health care. What it also means, Tom, is people could have gotten additional SNAP benefits for a lot longer. But because the General Assembly ended our state of emergency, they won't. So at a time when people are paying more than ever for food, there would have been more dollars flowing in to help them out. That's why I vetoed that bill, because we don't have a single restriction still in place. I just thought since food costs more because of supply chain disruption from COVID and from the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we ought to be helping them a little bit more. So it's pretty sad that because of that, I think it was about $50 million a month that was going to help people buy food for now multiple months was denied those that need it the most. Josh James, WUKY.
Hi, Governor. On elections, Al Cross had a Tribune piece on the group of Republicans branded as Liberty candidates who made the cut on Tuesday, potentially indicating a party moving further right. On the left, there's Jeff Young in the 6th House District, whom I know you're not supporting, but it could affect down ballot races. All that together, what political lessons do you take away from the primary elections on Tuesday?
Well, first, turnout is critically important. It was very low, and we don't get the best results of democracy when too few people participate in democracy. We need to make sure that more people vote and have their voices heard. And I believe that when we do, what we do is we elect people who can get things done. Now, whether you're talking about somebody on the right or the left, it's red or blue or D or R, our families rightfully expect us to work every day to create better jobs so they can put food on the table, to ensure that they can see and afford a doctor when they're sick, and that their kids are getting the best education. They don't reach the other issues that people talk about or campaign on until they're secure at the end of the night, that those basic functions and their public safety have been met. We need to make sure we're electing reasonable people that can talk to each other and ultimately get things done and move us forward. And I don't think I'm the only person that's providing that message today or yesterday. I think there are people that come from all political parties that agree. Division, anger, hate, toxicity, that's not what our politics are supposed to be about. We're supposed to run being for things, not against people. and the mailers that we see, the anger, the meanness of it, and that's not who we are. And it's not who we want to be seen as. So I look forward as we move forward to better and higher turnouts, to all of us first looking at any candidate and saying, can they move our state not right or left, but to move it forward? Jessica Payne, Murray, Ledger, and Times.
Thank you, Governor. Actually, first, I would like to thank you for honoring Chief Deputy Cash. You are correct. As a community, we are reeling from the loss. So thank you for that. My question is for Dr. Stack. And that is,
Go ahead.
now that we're beginning to see an escalation. Beg your pardon?
Go ahead. He's
Now that we're
coming up.
beginning to see an escalation in cases. Okay. The excuse me. Now that we're seeing an escalation in cases, can you provide some reassurance that the weekly reporting model is going to be sensitive enough to allow people to modify their behaviors prior to a surge?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the question for others is the weekly reporting of data sufficient for people to be alerted in time to take steps to protect themselves? I think the public health community believes it is. Because there's a de-linkage between the growth of those cases and the impact on healthcare and hospitals, and by extension, people getting severely sick, we do believe it's enough time. If you look once a week, you can get a gauge for what's the trajectory. The metrics the CDC picked were the ones when they looked at all the data points that they had and they could collect across the whole country over the whole course of the pandemic for the first year and a half. Those were the ones that predicted what would happen 3 or so weeks down the road with the best reliability when they looked back at all the historical data. So yes, I think that the weekly reporting is enough. And again, folks, we need to be responsible. We need to be careful. We need to be considerate to other people. If others are wearing masks, please, we have to support them. That is perfectly not only fine, but it's a good thing if they're taking steps to protect themselves or others. We also, though, have to stop navel gazing at every one of these little numbers and details and move on also with our lives and acclimate to what living with COVID is like responsibly, safely, but without having it crowd out other things we should be attending to. So I hope that gives some thoughts for that.
And finally, don't go too far, Steve. Melissa Patrick from Kentucky Health News.
Thank you, Governor. I have two questions, and yes, one is for Dr. Stack. And first, did you say navel gazing? Can you just clarify what that term was?
I'm gonna let Dr. Stack take that one.
But the next
you asked me to
question is well, I just need to make sure I heard what you said.
I did use navel gazing.
Navel. Well,
yeah, looking at your navel, like staring at your belly button, which is not terribly important, instead of thinking about more important topics. That, I think, is how that colloquialism is used.
Well, that's a first for me. Well, anyway, I would like to, only, you well know, 23% of kids 5 to 11 have been reported in Kentucky to have gotten even just the first shot. And so they're getting ready to approve this booster. Can you just talk a little bit about why it's so important for this group to get vaccinated, and speak to any suggestions or thoughts you have to get this done? And then my second question is for the governor state on medical marijuana.
I think he caught the second question. The first one, it is important for younger children to get vaccinated. There's attention now, and we've had some media requests on this topic for like long COVID. Long COVID affects people of all ages. We don't understand long COVID well. It'll take years before the medical community has clearer definitions, so we can even track it better, let alone try to help figure out how to help people with it. And children are at the onset of their lives. They have decades and decades, hopefully, of healthy life ahead of them. And we don't fully understand the impact, but we do know that those vaccines reduce the severity of the disease for people who are vaccinated. And there is some early evidence that getting vaccinated may help lower your risk for long COVID. It may even help people who have long COVID generate a response that helps them to improve. All of this will take time for the scientists to figure out. But even though children generally have less severe disease, even though they don't end up in the hospital with the same frequency, thank goodness, it clearly hurts children. It hurts children for a longer period of time, even if in smaller proportion. But the vaccines have been shown over and over and over, and I've lost count now how many, well over 10 billion doses have been given worldwide. I didn't look at that number before I came here. And many, many millions of doses have been given in Kentucky with little to no signal of harm for the two mRNA vaccines that are currently being used. And so I would still encourage parents to talk with your pediatrician. We understand that you love your children more than just about anything else, and probably more than anything else in your lives. And we respect that. Talk to your pediatrician, seek their advice, and make sure you're comfortable. But I think when you do that, you will find that overwhelmingly the pediatricians will encourage you to be open to vaccination, both for COVID and for other diseases that can be prevented by vaccine.
As an update on medical marijuana, I expect that we will have named our advisory team by the end of next week. We've had a minor delay because we've got folks on our team here in the Capitol that are out with COVID. I've also received several legal briefings and am confident that there is at least some room to provide at least some relief to folks in Kentucky that are suffering, as well as steps to at least move forward towards a properly outlined and regulated structure that we could use and adopt in the future. That's about all I think I can put forth today, but we are making progress, and I believe that people will see progress that can be taken and will be taken through executive action. All right, thank you all very much.